So hi everybody and welcome back to C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 192 and in this video we are talking about casting and making examples. And there are different kind of castings. You can already see we have here 4 keyword casts, and then we have even casting which are implicit conversion, and then we have explicit type conversion, which is also called C-style cast, and there are even more. In this video we talk about implicit conversion, but we will only make an example and not going through all the parts which we have here. This one we will do in a future exercise where I make many examples and then we have to identify what we are doing. Okay, let's get started with an example. And you can see I have here prepared a little code here on top. It's called here, it is just a variable, double variable. Then this double variable assigned a value, and now I try to assign this double variable to another variable, but this other variable has a type int. And normally we expect that this one is not working because they are not compatible. The compiler should give us an error. That is at least what a programmer should think. But when we start here this compilation, and the compiler is, first of all, giving us not an error. Instead, the compiler is converting this double value from a double to an integer. And how is the compiler doing this? You can see it is just cutting off here the decimal point. So this one becomes 5. And that is in general something very, very bad, because here the compiler is doing this without giving us a warning or an error, and the programmer don't know it. And that's the first thing what we have to learn. This assignment what we are doing here is a copy assignment. So we are copying this value here to this one, and we learned this in initialization, right? So here actually this is let's go here a little bit. Let me show you this fast. We have here initializer, and we learned when we are initializing variables, there are 3 kinds of initializer. And what we are right now using is this copy initialization with this version where we have this. We have talked a little bit about this one, and you can see this copy initialization, what I try to do here, is not good because the compiler can convert a double to an int. We lose values, and this can cause big problems in coding. This can cause really big problems for us later. To avoid this, there are different ways. But first of all, what is this conversion called? This conversion is called implicit conversion. Why is it called implicit conversion? Because the compiler is doing it, not we. And so that's very important. So how we can avoid this, for example, that the compiler should not do this one because we think it's too dangerous. And one way is we can just, let's use another version of this one comment. We also learned here in our initializer list this version with this brace initialization, right? And this brace initialization here, this one is not allowing a so-called narrow conversion, which means allowing the compiler not to convert different values. And here I have an example for this one. You can see this code here is exactly the same thing like here. I have only initialized it differently. Now I use this one here. And when I run this example here, I start, and the compiler is now complaining. And what are you saying? You can read here, it says conversion from double to int. So you can see different types requires a narrow conversion, and this narrow conversion means the compiler should be allowed to compile it. And this one here on top, this is a narrow conversion, which means the compiler is allowed to do this. So why is this better? First of all, now we see we are trying to change a type. Changing a type is all-time danger because the double type here has more information than an int. let's say, can have more information than a int. But important is, for in this example, it is just cutting off these values, and as a programmer, I don't want this. Normally, I don't want this because I declared this as a double. And now I want to use this value, and I want not that the compiler should cut me off my value, and I don't want that this cause problem. But there is some cases where you still want this double here in an int, and you as a programmer say, hey, I know this is a double, I still want it in an int, and I don't care about this decimal points, for example. Then this one is called intentionally. So, and to make it intentionally, there are different ways. One way, you saw it already here, you can just use this copy initialization, then this narrow conversion is allowed. This is one way to allow this one, but the better way is probably to indicate this that you are intentionally want change this value, double value, to an int value. And how you can do this, and here when we go back, there are one cast node, for example, there are different cast nodes, but the static cast will do it. You can open up this static cast. We will talk about static cast, by the way, in the next video. Here I use it just for casting intentionally something. Let's copy this one here. Let's put this one here down. And instead of this line here, I say now I want intentionally that this value here becomes an int, so that the compiler should not complain. So what I can do is, you can see I just copy this one here and say, okay, now I use this cast node, this static cast node. Let's write it as a reference here. Oops, I already deleted this one. That was not good. Let's copy this one more time. And this is just the syntax, very easy. We will talk about the syntax in the next video a little bit more. It's very easy actually. And so you can see now I want to tell the compiler, yes, I want this double to an int, and I know this decimal points will disappear. I know it, this is intentionally, and that's why I use this static cast. And now let's use it, static cast. Here in this square bracket, this angel brackets here, you are typing the new type, because now the programmer knows exactly what you want. You say, I want an int, and here in this round brackets, you type the expression. Important is an expression has all-timer type, and in our case, I want this variable. A variable is an expression. It has a type, so I can put in this variable here. And you can see when I compile this now, it is again 5. The difference here, however, is here I made it intentionally. So this is not implicit. This is intentionally made by the programmer. He knows it. He knows exactly at this point, yes, I know this is a double. I know there is a data loss probably, and there is also a storage size change, because double has 8 bytes and an int has only 4 bytes, for example, depends on the machine. But he knows this when you are declaring this line. On the other side, with an implicit conversion, you don't know it, and the bad thing is sometimes the compiler do this in places where you probably want not it and cause a big problem. So that's very, very important, and that's all about what we need to know about implicit conversion. There is much more, of course, about theory. When you read here down, there are much other topics as well. But in general, you can read a little bit about this implicit conversion. The compiler is doing something what you what you don't want normally. Only you want it only if you really know it. For example, in this case, yes, I know that the compiler is implicitly converting this to this, and then it becomes an intentional implicit conversion. But the problem is here, yes, sometimes it can happen in a code that you don't want it, and it happened, and that will cause problems. That's why this way with this one here is safer. And if something happens, you can see this, that you have intentionally converted something there. All right, that's it for this video. And in the next video, we will go to static casting. We already saw the syntax, but in static casting, you can see here are many use cases, and we will dive here into these examples and we'll try to use them. Of course, this implicit conversion has here a little bit more theory, which you should read. And like I said, this one I will probably do in an exercise and ask you many questions about implicit conversions, but in an exercise. So with that step, I said, I stop this video. And if you have any questions, any comment, any suggestions or anything else, write in the comments. And with that said, bye, see you in the next video, and good luck.